everybody, welcome back to the basement, welcome back to the channel. Today we are checking out the new Lionel 060 Strasburg number 31 switcher here on the layout. Let's go. So this is the second recent cataloged Strasburg engine from Lionel. This engine that you see behind me was cataloged in the 2022 Volume 1 catalog. Now if we think back, Strasburg 90, the brass hybrid, was cataloged in the 2021 Volume 2 catalog. And then in the 2022 Volume 2 catalog, they came out with 89. So 3 catalogs in a row, Lionel has hit us with some Strasburg engines.
But wait, there's more. Before that, they gave us 8618. So 4 Strasburg engines in 4 consecutive catalogs. Come on, guys, you're killing me.
If you're a Strasburg collector, they're almost must-haves. And not only did they come out with these, but they came out with some beautiful wood-sided coaches as well. So today on the channel, we're going to get the chance to get up close and personal with this 060. Behind number 31 today, we're going to be pulling the 90s paint scheme wood-sided reefers. And then we have a special treat that will be pulling the current 2000s paint scheme wood-sided reefers. We have all 6 offerings that are out right now. And so we're going to check them out right here today. Now, I do have to make a little bit of an amendment. These are here on loan from my friend John from the Lower Susquehanna Valley Modular Railroad Club, based out of Columbia, Pennsylvania. John has a massive collection of Strasburg equipment and was kind enough to drop these off actually at my doorstep the other day. So John, thank you so much for this. This thing is a real treat, and I've been really trying to do my best not to purchase a new train right now, just because there's some other pre-orders coming in and things like that. But man, this is really making it tough because this thing is super, super cool. So let's get up close and personal with this new engine and talk about some of the features.
All right, so this is an 060. What does that mean? Well, up front, we don't have any wheels under the pilot. We have 6 drive wheels, 3 on each side, and we don't have any wheels back here on the trailing truck. So that makes it an 060 or 060. Now, this engine from Lionel is super short because, again, it's a switcher engine. This was built for switching in yards. It was not meant to be pulling long coal drags or freight consists on the main line. This thing was regulated for yard duty. And so that's why it doesn't have those, it doesn't have big drive wheels, it only has 3, and it doesn't have any other wheels on the engine itself. Now, because it is so short, Lionel has a wired tether here. So as we know, for most of our current Lionel steam engines, we'll have a wireless tether. So you've got a drawbar with an IR sensor on the top there and an IR sensor on the hook for the tender itself. And what that does is it communicates from the legacy board that lives inside the boiler into the sound components here in the tender, because there's usually a speaker in the tender. Now, for an engine of this size, the issue that you'd run into is you only have 2 pickup rollers here on the engine, and they're really close together. So if you have any sort of electrical continuity issues on your track, you would lose power from your motor and your train would stall. Or you would lose power on to your speaker, and your sounds would cut out. So to remedy that, they put a tethered wire in here, and that allows power to be pulled from the tender to the motors and from the engine here to the speaker itself. Now, let's talk about the prototype. This is modeled after the USRA 060, which was built in about 1918 to 1919. There were over 250 of these built. Now, the key thing that I need to point out, engine 31 at Strasburg is not a USRA 060. It was actually built by Baldwin in the early 1900s. I believe it was 1908 is when this engine was actually built. And it was built for the Grand Trunk Railway, which then was the Canadian National Railway, and eventually in the 60s was sold to Strasburg. When it was sold to Strasburg in the 60s, interestingly enough, when it pulled its first tourist train that summer, that was the return of passenger steam service in the United States. It was the only steam service for passengers in the US at the time. So a pretty neat tidbit of information. Now, Lionel cataloged this with 7 other offerings in that catalog, and they all have pretty much the same setup with the same style tender. This tender is not accurate for number 31. It didn't have a tender that has the coal bunker up top like this. It was slightly different. However, when you have a tooling, there's only so many modifications that you can make, and so this is what we got for this model. But what they did do, they added some road-specific detailing of moving the light down to the center of the the front of the smoke box there and bringing our number boards out front. Those are all road specific detailing for engine 31. Now, if we were being really specific for what 31 looked like, this would almost kind of look like a rust bucket. 31 hasn't been running well over a decade. It, for the long period of time, was sitting in Strasburg's boneyard, but is currently being restored. My understanding is that it should be done anytime now. That was the last update that I had, but I'm sure someone in the comments will correct me. It should be hopefully done at some point soon because engine 90 is at the very end of its inspection run. And so it's going to be pulled off of mainline service here pretty soon. And then they're only going to have 475 and 89. So 31 will be a welcome return to the Strasburg faithful. Another thing is, because this is so small, a lot of the electronics can be housed here in the tender, which frees up some space in the engine. Now, this model does not have whistle steam because there's not a whole lot of room here. But what it does have is a swinging bell. So the swinging bell feature was added after the fact. It was not cataloged with a swinging bell. In fact, Ryan Kunkel from Lionel announced that it had the swinging bell afterwards when they were doing a live stream right before these were delivered. And these were delivered, I believe it was early January of 2023 is when these were delivered. I think it was maybe November or December, maybe even October, when he had announced that they were able to fit a swinging bell in here and surprise everyone that had ordered these. Now, they are still available. They retail at $7.99, but you can pick them up for less than that from a Lionel dealer. As we look down from the top of this locomotive, with having the wired tether, the one benefit is, if we pop this coal bunker off, there are all of our controls. So you don't have to flip the engine over to go from run to program or turn your Bluetooth on or off or your smoke on or off, which is very nice. So what else does this engine have? Well, it's got front and rear electrocouplers. The reason why it doesn't have a scale coupler up front is because it's a switcher. And so it would often be moving trains or freight cars backwards, forwards from the tender side or from the front pilot of the engine side as well. Now, also in Strasburg, when it pulls out of the station, the engine is actually running in reverse, pulling the train from the front, running backwards, and then when it comes back from Paradise into Strasburg, it's running the way that you see here. So today we're gonna send this thing around the layout with some wood-sided passenger cars. Let's check those out. So here we have some wood-sided passenger cars from Lionel. These are the recent release that they've come out with. These are the tooling from MTH, so they probably look familiar. And these are absolutely gorgeous cars. They come with the figures inside. The one thing they don't have is they don't have the standing figure. So MTH released these cars many years ago, and they had one standing crew figure inside each of these coaches. Lionel removed that, but they actually added a few more seated figures that MTH did not have in theirs. Now, this is the 90s paint scheme. So we have the older emblem there with the railroad tie, and the name of the car is there in kind of an oval shape. We've got some yellow lettering and striping on these cars as well. And in fact, the colors would be a little bit brighter than what we would see on the railroad today. Here is one of the 2000s paint schemes. You'll notice that there is no striping so much at the top. This one is actually the Boston and Maine car, which is prototypical for Strasburg. But we've got the numbers here on the sides. The name of the car is just straight across. Now, on some of the other cars, you would still have Strasburg up here on the top, but it doesn't look quite the same. It's got the black bar with the Strasburg written there. Now, if we continue to move this out of the way, we're going to go about halfway, and we'll stop this guy there. This is one of the MTH cars. So you can see the paint color difference. The MTH ones are definitely a darker maroon, where these are a little bit brighter, but you can see just some of the difference. So now, if we get a little bit closer here with this, you will see we've got some figures in there. We've got some standing figures in here as well. So a little bit different than the current Lionel versions. We've got some detailing on the inside as well. This one is an observation car, so it's got some lanterns on it. And we've got some detailing here on the side as well as the awning there. Now again, this is obviously an observation car, so it's slightly different, but this is the MTH version. Today we're going to be running Lionel.
Train 1 brakeman, let's get an application for continuity test. Good application, okay to release. Train 1 brakeman, we have good set, good release, good continuity on timetable train number 1. Over.
That's a roger. Good set, good release, good continuity on timetable train number 1. Out. Cleared outbound. Out.